Hey, what's good, self-direct investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan. I'm the mind behind Make More Capital, and today we're coming at you with This Week in Cannabis News from March 20th to the 26th. Now, before we jump in, if you enjoy this video or you learned something, please just leave a like on it, as it really helps out my channel. And of course, if you want to learn how to take advantage of this generational investment opportunity, subscribe below so that you don't miss any future videos. There's plenty of content for you to go back, rewatch, and educate yourself with. I've tried to put all the news and facts in one place so you can watch episodes over time to learn about the evolution of the entire industry, identify top companies that you keep seeing pop up, and then take advantage whenever you feel ready if you wish to do so. We're going to start today's episode by recapping a few big announcements that we got this past week from organizations and groups that are much larger than the entire cannabis industry combined. And for that reason, because of the influence that they carry, I would consider these newsworthy. I just wanted to share this at breadcrumb from Brady, Cobb, Legalize It. I believe this would have been from a notification that he got in his email from Politico, most likely. But alcohol wholesalers throw backing behind legal weed. The Wine and Spirits Wholesalers of America, one of the largest alcoholic beverage trade groups in Washington, is coming out in support of federal cannabis decriminalization and regulation, Politico's Natalie Fertig reports. Now, obviously, we don't know how they want to legalize it, and I'm not saying we agree with them legalizing it, but the whole concept of them getting behind decriminalization and incremental reform is a big deal, I'd say. So cannabis legalization at the state level is here to stay, evidenced by nearly a decade of newly legalized state markets and no meaningful effort to undo them. WSWA stated in a policy paper released this morning and shared exclusively with Politico. And so just wanted to share this snippet. Of course, you can pause to read the rest, but it cuts out. And just to highlight down here, Brady has been saying this for a very long time. Obviously, he knows more as a lobbyist than we do on how much influence that big alcohol and big tobacco has. So just wanted to share the snippet. Now, there's more on this story from Tom Engel and from Marijuana Moment, but just to highlight as well, saying that the current system for alcohol regulation serves as a strong model and that cannabis reform should not be done in a piecemeal manner. And obviously, that goes against the whole incremental idea that we seem to believe needs to be how anything gets done. Obviously, expect the unexpected, but just wanted to share this, and again, more on how they plan to do it, but I don't want to dive into that yet unless we actually hear news of something, forthcoming and actually going to happen. Well, on top of that announcement from the Wine and Spirits Association, thank you Jungle Java for sharing this one, because Marlboro cigarette maker Altria, a big tobacco company with a market cap of $78 billion, also said they look to double its smoke-free revenue in 5 years and considers expanding to cannabis and caffeine pouches, Wall Street Journal reports. And no doubt Altria's made some failed investments, I believe in cannabis, but also in the e-cigarette space. Clearly, they don't see cannabis going away anytime soon. And so just wanted to share this article. You can pause to read to hear what they had to say, but it seems like they're talking smoke-free products, which could also be edibles, concentrates, beverages, along the likes. And so just wanted to highlight that. But the same week, we get a big announcement from Big Tobacco and Big Alcohol, kind of in line with Brady Cobb is saying, is once they're ready to move, we might see something happen. And so just wanted to share this as well, because this is outside of the US that we're anticipating. And while we're anticipating for April 2023, now May 2023, based on what we saw in my last week's video, just relaying cannabis in Germany will be a success story. And it's nice to see will as opposed to could. Europe's biggest economy moves closer to weed legalization. So you can pause to read this snippet here, although key points they're not necessarily that important in this little bit here, but we will soon present a proposal that works, that is, that conforms to European law, Lauterbach said following months of talks with Brussels. And so we've been waiting for this for a long time. We heard April, then we heard May, but keep in mind, so under the plans, this is how they're going to legalize it. But then read down here. If approved by Parliament, the bill could be implemented in phases between now and mid-2024. So while it says here, May 1 will be seen as the day Germany legalized cannabis, that's extremely misleading. Now, maybe it'll be May 1, 2024, but understand that they have to unveil and introduce the bill, and then there's going to be a lot of talking back and forth before they vote on it and anything like that. So just don't expect it to pass anytime soon. Again, highlighting that this quote is very, very misleading, but it would make Germany the world's largest regulated national cannabis market and the first country in the EU to permit commercial sale with potentially sweeping implications for the bloc. Could it be the first domino to fall? Most likely. And so, April, May, we're looking out for this. Could be a big catalyst if some of the other words from U.S. politicians, which leads me to this next story, are kept and they follow up on it. So thanks, Todd, for sharing this. As we got this announcement this week from Bloomberg, pot banking bill becomes temporary casualty in financial turmoil. He says, I want to do safe banking, said Sherrod Brown, who discussed the issue with Senator Schumer. It doesn't mean long-term delay, but it means delays a couple weeks. Of course, because cannabis has never been that important of an issue to any politician, but this is coming from Sherrod Brown, the Senate banking chairman. And so take his word for it, and then I wanted to share this clip because, again, it does not say that they're not doing it, but they were planning on doing it. Because of SBB, they had to delay, but now they're going to do it in a couple weeks. If that would line up with Germany, that would be huge. But again, just wanted to share this clip of Sherrod Brown saying this himself at the conference for the American Bankers Association.
What's your plan, your prognosis, how you plan to bring it up, and where you think that goes?
Prognosis is positive.
We'd love to hear that. What's a little more hopium at this point, right?
Hopeful. hopeful we can do it relatively soon. We were about to move on it.
Oh, were ya? Can we take his word after years of being lied to? It's hard to, but this is again coming out of the mouth of the Senate Banking Chairman as the ABA is urging Congress to do their job and pass this bill that's been sitting there, passed the House 7 times. It would make America much safer and give banks the cash that they need right now.
I've worked with Leader Schumer. I'm not as clear where Leader McConnell wants to go. I think the White House wants this fixed.
But I think that's big. The White House wants this fixed, then it's going to get fixed.
And I think most members of the Senate do.
I'd like to think. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments as we get closer, but just wanted to share this as it's even being published in Bloomberg.com. Weed banking bill on hold. So not tossed in the garbage, but on hold as Senate deals with financial chaos. And so unfortunately, paywall behind here, but just wanted to feature it if you wanted to pull the link from Bloomberg. But on top of that, we got one more clip here, this one from the HHS Secretary Xavier Becerra on a bit of an update on the status of cannabis rescheduling. And while I'm going to play this video, it's a bit painful because it almost sounds like it was an AI-generated interviewer asking this question. The guy's voice is so monotonous, it makes you want to turn it off. And then even the response, it just looks so fake. But just to highlight that, sadly, if anything we've learned over the last few years, most educated Americans too, the sad part, they believe in political science over the actual science. They're so educated, they believe what they're told through their institutions that they forget to ask questions, lose their curiosity, and they end up, becoming mindless robots following the political science as opposed to being able to dig deep and ask questions. Sad, but that's where we're at. So don't lose your ability to ask good questions.
The Secretary has also been asked by the President to review the status of cannabis as an illegal federal Schedule I drug that conflicts with states with medical marijuana like Pennsylvania and recreational marijuana like Maryland, New Jersey, and New York.
This is hilarious.
So is change coming soon?
It'll all be based on the science. It'll be based on safety for Americans
political
and
science.
Whether or not we can show that there has been a change since the early 1990s.
And it's very obvious that they can show there's been a change from now into the 1990s. So
in what cannabis means to America.
Might we have that decision by 4/20, April 20th?
Well, I know we're going to try to move quickly. It's got to go through a number of hoops. And again, safety and efficacy are what will drive this determination. So
yeah, if that was true, cannabis wouldn't be in Schedule I in the first place. But could something come before 20 and he doesn't give us any word, but he says, oh, we're going to move on something. So could incremental still be the way, or is something big coming? I have no idea. Just sharing the news as it comes. What do you think? Please let me know in the comments. The MSO news, though, is Curaleaf provides an update on their 2022 fourth quarter and full year earnings release and earnings call, which is not ideal to hear as they're supposed to announce that next week. But due to complexities of converting 3 years of financials from IFRS to US GAAP, the company requires additional time to complete its financial statements. Go figure. And so the company expects to file its financial statements within the month of April, no later than the prescribed filing deadline provided under applicable securities law, but no date has been released yet. Once they settle on that date, they are going to put out a PR for it. And so not ideal to hear. I do wonder what's going on behind the scenes, but this is another one from NewJersey.com highlighting an unfortunate reality of what happens when regulators in a state don't want to help the market thrive from the bottom up, and they don't want to phase out the black market. And therefore, they only allow a few outlets to be opened and only allow a small amount of cultivation. Therefore, the ability to legally supply the demand is hindered by these legal companies allowing the black market to thrive, because I don't think they would be shutting down this cultivation site if New York said, hey, let's grow as much cannabis as possible, open as many dispensary outlets, and let this industry thrive. As New Jersey cannabis cultivation site closing down, entire staff could lose their jobs. And so that does suck for Curaleaf in New Jersey, and it's 40 employees. It's not like it's 10,000 or in the thousands that we see from tech companies, but the company will transfer its growing operations from Belmar to its other cultivation facility in Winslow. So it seems like regulators did not give Curaleaf enough ability to legally supply the demand, therefore they have to shut down jobs. Is it Curaleaf's fault, or is it the New Jersey regulators? Sadly, from the East Coast, we're seeing a lot of regulators interfering with what could be successful cannabis markets. And so with that, thank you, Winnie A, for sharing, though. On a bright side, TerrAscend buys. So this is another company where we're seeing buying in the open market from the executive chairman. And I don't know exactly Ziad Ghanem's position within the company, but seeing this does provide some confidence, as clearly they believe that the company is going to be worth a lot more in the future than now. And do they expect something to come in the next few weeks or months with everything that we're hearing? And Germany, not exactly sure, but they're putting their money where their mouth is, which I do love to see. Air Wellness press release from them, expanding their Florida footprint with 4 new retail locations. And so this was the 23rd. They announced that it has opened 4 new retail stores in Florida, located in Lake Mary, Lando Lakes, Orlando, and Palmetto Bay. And so a little bit more here if you wanted to pause to read. And while I did not include all of the Florida data in this video, just because there's a lot of stories, I will feature it in the comments when I post it tomorrow morning as well, if you were interested. But with that, onto some state news, as apparently a cannabis shortage leads to soaring prices in Missouri. And so this is what happens when you don't allow the legal companies to grow enough cannabis to cultivate. prices go up. It's not necessarily a bad thing as markets go through cycles, right? And so obviously this will likely cause them to approve more cultivation so that this does not become a problem in the future. But this is where we're at already, as Missouri is seeing massive demand. Things are getting high in Missouri for cannabis users in more than one way. Ha ha ha, of course you gotta have a pun to start this off. Less than 2 months into rec cannabis being legal, there's already a cannabis shortage, and that's leading to an increase in prices. It starts with cultivators not being able to keep up with the demand, moves down the line to manufacturers paying more for what's grown, and ultimately leads to higher checkout totals at dispensaries. So Missouri initially predicted around 50 to 60 million would be spent on cannabis. Now we're looking at 100 million being spent because the first few months were, expectations were blown out of the water. Missouri has 8 bordering states, only one of which has legalized cannabis use, so demand is coming from outside of the state, was not factored in, and supply is suffering. Nearly 40% of all dollars spent in Kansas City area have been from Wyandotte and Johnson counties in Kansas. So we love to hear that when you offer legal cannabis, the demand, or when you supply the demand legally, people want to vote for with their dollars to buy legal cannabis. So more on the story if you wanted to pause read, but nonetheless just highlighting, hopefully they can solve this issue sooner than later, and so we don't see like a big shortfall in Missouri when they have all this momentum. But on top of that, some unfortunate news out of New York, as New York is a joke of an industry, sadly, because of the communist regulators that run this. This was said by Axel Barnaby, the Chief of Staff and Senior Policy Director for New York's Office of Cannabis Management. And this man should not have a job, but until he does get fired and held accountable for holding back this entire industry, not great for MSOs in New York. And so this is just him thinking out loud, saying thoughts on out-of-state brands entering New York via licensing deals such as Theory Wellness. That seems to undercut some of the OCM's priorities, such as bolstering small New York companies, right? Wouldn't you want to give companies in New York the head start? Actually, counterintuitively, I would say we're hugely amenable to and encouraging out-of-state brands to come participate in New York because we're looking to have the most competitive market possible on the supply side. Who's growing the cannabis to allow supplying all these companies coming into New York, though? That's the funny thing. These guys are idiots. It goes back to what I was giving you as a vision. We don't want you to come in as an MSO and try to build a 250,000 square foot average weed grow facility. If that's the business model you're in, then New York is not where you want to be because we're not going to let you do it. Well, who's growing all the cannabis? Are you going to expect all these new businesses to come in to buy all their weed from the hemp farmers that aren't growing quality cannabis? No, that's not how it's going to work, pal. In fact, you come to New York, you can partner with a processor and we'll give you a processor license without you having to actually set up processing facilities. Who's processing all this cannabis then? It's called a processor in name only, and it's just a license so that we know that you're here as a brand. You can white label with any of your existing processors. You can buy biomass from that seems they want to drive all this to the hemp farmers from an existing farmer, or try to apply for a grow license or buy one. So I don't necessarily know all the implications of what he's saying here, but all I see is that this is ammunition for the MSOs to use in their court case against the New York regulators, in how they're discriminating against New York-based companies that have been providing the medical program thus far. And so a little bit more down here if you want to pause read. It seems ridiculous, especially for all these social equity applicants in New York that have been unfortunately thrown under the bus and shafted by those who claim to be working in their best interests. You cannot make this shit up. And then wanted to share this one from MJ Biz Daily, as New York's Long Island opts out of cannabis retail completely, limiting options for store operators, especially those social equity applicants, I would imagine. Get this, when New York regulators announced plans to double recreational cannabis retail licenses to 300 for social equity applicants, and this was a few weeks ago, saying they would increase the number of licenses from 150 to 300 when they still only have 3 legal dispensaries open and 1,500 illegal ones running rampant. But sadly, these local gullible cannabis operators and other industry advocates applauded the news, thinking it would be good for them. But behind the scenes, concerns were mounting over the challenging of finding affordable cannabis real estate across large parts of the state because of zoning and commercial restrictions, because this requires actual work that the regulators clearly are not aware that you have to do. And sadly, there's a lot of people, nearly 3 million, living in Nassau and Suffolk counties that aren't going to get access to this because of the ridiculousness and the idiocracy that we're seeing from these New York regulators. And so again, it's a major issue not only for the CUARD licensees who have been granted this preliminary approval because there's limited locations to find, but it creates an even more challenging issue for the next round of licenses that aren't going to get shops to open. So you cannot make this shit up. Full article down here if you wanted to read through, but just highlighting, again, sadly, the joke that is New York. Thank God there are 49 other states. Coming out of Michigan cannabis prices spiked in February, first time since legalization. Now, the spike wasn't huge, but again, highlighting the waves and cycles that these markets can go through, and seeing the supply and the demand shift. Fewer plants being grown and stepped up enforcement appear to be driving the price trend. And so hopefully the stepped up enforcement is going a long way to shutting down any illegal operations in the state, because of course when you legalize, you want to reward those going through the legal regulatory hoops, doing it legally, as opposed to allowing those illegal ones to flourish like New York does. But prices rose to 86 per ounce of flower last month from 80 $80.12 per ounce in January, according to data from Michigan Cannabis Regulatory Agency. So not a big jump, but apparently the number of plants actively being grown in the state for adult use rec has plummeted 20.5% to just over 1.2 million since September, compared to September 2021 to February 2022, when that rose more than 2%. And this is another thing we can't really keep tabs on, but once you reform your laws, there's going to be some problems, and hopefully you can, implement new policy to clamp down on these problems. But just an example, Dave Merrow, CEO of Troy-based Loom Cannabis, confirmed to Cranes the company does outsource some of its growing, but said the decline in plants being grown is also due to black market cannabis not counted in the state's regulated system being blended into the market. How convenient for him to outsource his growing and not mention who he outsources it from. But he says if you are blending, you need to pay for fewer plants being grown. And so we don't know, sticky situation, but of course, hopefully changes can be made that will help prevent that and ensure that the legal operators have the best possible chance of success. But with that, Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel, appreciate you acknowledging Safe Banking Act and tweeting this out, has issued warrants for 12 individuals responsible for over 20 cannabis dispensary break-ins across the state. And so she's obviously calling for law enforcement to take more action against this, but highlighting this as an unfortunate example of why Congress must pass the Safe Banking Act. Should have done it 2 years ago. Better late than never. Without access to traditional banking, the cannabis industry is left as a ripe target for criminals. Any legal business should have fair access to our banking institutions for the security of their own business and employees, as well as real public safety. If, safety and whatever, all these politicians use that as an excuse. And so with that, just wanted to share this snippet from Marijuana Moment. Now, I found this guy, Max Westfall. Now I realized he's likely a fake account, and it just pisses me off to see how this could just be a bot. But he does highlight that apparently Washington, D.C., the HQ of the federal government, just passed legislation legitimizing medical cannabis. And I didn't necessarily consider this a big deal. According to this possible bot, seems like a big deal. So take what he has to say with a grain of salt. We're going to jump over to this article and just go through it to highlight what changes have been made. But I just thought this was an interesting point. So whether this is a real person who just doesn't use Twitter much, or it's a bot that is designed to do this to mislead us, I guess in a few months we'll find out whether that could possibly be the case, and that's more plausible than we would have expected before. But they won't continue the charade that there is no medical value and thus should remain Schedule 1. So keep loading up. The end of prohibition is near. That's not advice, just sharing the snippet that leads into this article. For Marijuana Moment, though, D.C. medical cannabis expansion bill eliminating licensing caps becomes law following congressional review. And while sadly they cannot just approve that adult use market that voters in 2014 voted for, or maybe 2016, at least they're taking small steps in a different direction. So as Washington, D.C. bill to make fundamental changes to the medical cannabis program in the nation's capital became law on Wednesday after undergoing a congressional review period. The measure includes reforms such as eliminating cannabis business licensing caps, which obviously allows more businesses to start up, providing tax relief to operators, 280E in the form, which I believe that will go into effect, which is huge, further promoting social equity and creating new regulated businesses categories such as on-site consumption facilities and cannabis cooking classes, while it also provides a pathway for current gifting operators or illegal sellers that sell non-cannabis items in exchange for free cannabis products to enter the licensed market. So basically, we're going to allow illegal operators to enter the legal market, as if they're going to change their ways, while empowering officials to crack down on those who continue to operate illegally. So we're going to give those illegal ones a chance to join in, and if they don't, then we might see the law crack down on it. And so interesting nonetheless. A bit more here if you wanted to pause to read. Otherwise, whole article will be down below in the description, but progress out of DC at least, happy to highlight. So thanks, Todd, for sharing this one from New Frontier Data, another one of these. U.S. cannabis industry could be this big by this time, so again, take it with a grain of salt, but there's a New Frontier Data report. I'll put the link in the description if you wanted to pull this report up and go through it. Of course, you got to put your email and your information in, but it is free besides that little cost. U.S. cannabis sales could total $71 billion without federal legalization whatsoever, and without Germany, obviously, being that domino in Europe. If the pace of state-level legalization continues in the absence of federal policy reform, annual cannabis sales would more than double in the next 7 years. And while that sounds very promising, we'll believe it when we see it. But as I mentioned, this link, the link for this report to pull it will be in the description. But with that, on to some studies. This one from Frontiers, use of non-medical cannabis in epilepsy, a scoping review. Actually a sensitive topic because we noticed that there are a lot of children that suffer from epilepsy and get seizures, and it seems like CBD is one of the few remedies that completely stops their seizures. However, trying to argue that kids deserve access to a safer, non-addictive medicinal alternative when the status quo is the way it is, it's very difficult. And so, objective and methods, though, looking the use of medical cannabis among people with epilepsy has been garnered increasing interest. In this scoping review, we aim to summarize the literature on non-medical cannabis use in people with epilepsy, focusing on the experience, habits, and beliefs of people with epilepsy regarding non-medical cannabis. cannabis. And that's the funny thing. Recreational cannabis is still medical cannabis because cannabis itself is a medicine. Oh, if these researchers can't figure that out, man, we might be fucked. But at least we know. And so results, obviously you can pause to read the whole thing, but just to highlight essentially the majority of people with epilepsy across all studies perceived that non-medical cannabis, or just cannabis, the medicine itself, aided in seizure control. That is enough to deschedule cannabis so that we can get a safer, non-addictive medicinal alternative to anyone who has epilepsy so that we can stop their seizures and so we can research cannabis for all the other medical benefits. And so obviously they're going to say the literature is sparse and heterogeneous with many salient knowledge gaps and we need to further research. Yeah, as opposed to wasting more time trying to replicate existing studies and look for negative effects when you're not going to find them because the government's been trying for 50 years. So more reason to deschedule this miracle plant and give it back to humanity. And so with that, thank you, Natalie O'Regan. This is out of Europe, as up to 3,000 residents of Zurich in Switzerland's biggest city will be able to purchase regulated doses of cannabis for personal use under its 3-year scheme starting this summer. So love to see Zurich trying this out, at least a pilot program. While I reported on this last year, it sucks that it has to take a full year to get into effect, but I believe it does start this summer. And if I was a resident of Zurich, Switzerland, I would definitely, or at least have tried to be one of these 3,000s getting to sign up. And so wish you guys well through this trial program. Well, I wanted to share this from Tom Blickman, who is a drug policy reform expert at the Transnational Institute. Now, Tom Blickman is I like to reference him as my bear case in Europe, mainly because while he's a drug policy reform expert, he gives a lot of credence to the fact that these old UN treaties that were set in the 60s and obviously motivated by racist Harry J. Anslinger and the US's motives to control, how countries across the world set their drug laws. Basically, he's saying that those UN treaties should now still supersede nations' abilities to change their own laws, which obviously shouldn't be the case. And whether he's right or not is going to be if Germany in the next 3 months does not stick to their plan to unveil and something happens to come about where Germany can't legalize. If that were to happen, then I'd be like, holy shit, this man might be onto something, and the UN might be onto something even bigger that we've even been following. But main thing, just to highlight whatever fear tactic he's bringing up today, Luxembourg's plans to allow residents for cannabis plants at home are questioned after the country's de facto upper chamber stated it would breach international law. And again, this international law seems to be some UN convention. Obviously, the EU's countries should come before international law. But so he says, while the plans would breach international law, they would conform with EU law. And so again, whatever he says makes it seem like, the UN has so much power and they're not going to allow countries to change their laws, which is outrageous. But so thank you, Dr. Nuke, for speaking common sense. None of the countries or US states which have legalized the sale or cultivation of cannabis have received any sanctions from the US for breaching their drug conventions, which is true from my understanding. No state in the US, Canada, Uruguay, I don't believe that the UN has gone after them and made them, change the laws, possibly because UN bodies and representatives have been publicly endorsing such reforms for some time. And then he just goes, really, posts an older thread that I think I shared in one of my older videos, and then he goes, yeah, really, which is good news because then you want to take away from this that not everyone in the UN has been indoctrinated to some of the old prohibitionists, and they clearly see that the failed war on drugs is a problem, and by fixing that, we right a lot of past wrongs. As the UN is a massive organization, and some of its subgroups and representatives have criticized the failures of prohibition and supported legalization, notably Kofi Annan. And so this is just one example. I'm not saying I support the UN, but again, this guy wants to say that, what the UN says should actually go against, or should be above the countries, especially countries in Europe, to change their own laws based on what they want. Obviously, that shouldn't be the case, so we'll have to look and see whether Germany actually keeps their word or not. Then whatever he says might, hold a little bit more weight. And so lastly, just wanted to share this recap of where we are today. We keep fighting the good fight, and real bad congrats to you. This is so sad. By sheer luck, he unloaded cannabis to buy something else in November, December 2020, but there is nothing wrong with cannabis companies. Obviously, you can find stuff that is wrong, but the main problem that we have faced, even as investors, except that the government betrayed this entire industry and thousands of workers it employs, and sadly us. No doubt the lesson has been learned the hard way, never to invest based on pending legislation, but that does not make me believe that this opportunity is out of the water. And I cannot tell you what to do. All I can tell you is that I'm going to start work again in April, so I'll have an income. And I'm just not going to sell my shares because I don't need the money. And I don't have anywhere else that I want to put that money in that I think is a better opportunity than the U.S. cannabis industry over the next decade, no doubt. And so just over 2 years ago, there were 30 plus investable cannabis companies. I don't know about 30 plus, but you could have gotten away with it because at the time, a rising tide does lift all ships. But then the Democrats took the White House and Congress, and since then, California cannabis has been devastated and New York corruption took over. And now there may be 3 investable cannabis companies. I would say the tier ones are still really the best option, or even for the play, owning Canadian LPs, being on the major exchanges, having that exposure. That's why I still own Tilray. Again, I can't tell you what to do. I'm just saying what I'm going to be doing. Democrat federal inaction with state-level corruption and incompetence has destroyed a once thriving legal industry in favor of the illicit one. And it is so sad what New York could have been. Obviously, most of my investments I made a few years ago was based on New York not shooting themselves in the foot and helping the industry thrive. Democrats' focus is still on the lawbreakers, New York giving felons licenses, releasing the others from prison, while punishing the legal players with high taxes and garbage stock exchanges. Again, you cannot make this shit up, but based on everything that we're hearing, are we close to a catalyst and a turning point? I don't know, but I know when the floodgates do open, it's going to be nearly impossible to stop all that rushing water. But that is it for today's episode, folks. So I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and I really hope you got some value out of it. What did you think of the stories mentioned? Let me know in the comments. If you have any questions or suggestions, and I'd be happy to address them. But besides that, if you enjoyed this video or you learned something, please just leave a like on it. Subscribe below if you don't want to miss any future videos, and I will catch you on Wednesday for a midweek update in the world of cannabis. Have a great weekend, everybody.